scream cut the bright afternoon in two. Before it everything felt ordinary, and after it nothing would ever be the same. Sunlight poured off chrome and spilled across cracked pavement while Lily Hart staggered backward, hands fumbling with an empty food container as if doing anything but fighting might anchor her to a quieter world. The roar of a sedan, the scrape of doors, and three shadowed men became the percussion to a moment that would not leave her. Lily had always been the kind of person who carried hope like a folded map in her back pocket, the sort who spent mornings at shelters and afternoons delivering meals to seniors, whose small charity drives stitched sunlight into people's days. Her husband, Dominic Hart, vice president of the Iron Sentinels Motorcycle Club, had learned to let her softness steer him, believing her gentle stubbornness kept their corner of the world from tipping into harsher things. On this warm afternoon, the cafe's bell chimed and faded, steam lifting from coffee like breath, and then cruelty walked up the curb. Beck Rourke, Seth Flint, and Darren Pike, men who trafficked in intimidation and looked for pain as if it were their right. They shoved, they laughed, they ripped at a locket that sat against Lily's chest like a talisman. And when Darren shoved her hard enough that she slid down the side of her truck, the sun seemed to fracture across her vision, and the world condensed to the weight of breath and the ache of shock. The scream was thin, raw, and it landed in the ear of the cafe owner who recognized the sound of someone who belonged to the town. That recognition turned into one hurried call, and 5 minutes later everything that could have gone wrong met the thunder of loyalty. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Loom. Dominic's arrival was not cinematic in the way movies stage it, but in a truer, less tidy way. 5 bikes rolling like weather, the motor club's engines a language the town knew, not of menace but of shield. He dismounted and for a suspended breath the world narrowed to the sight of Lily on the ground and the bruise already blooming along her cheek. Something inside him unclenched and then snapped into motion, not with a shout but with a gravity that rearranged the spine of the moment. His presence alone made the thugs take measure and overreach at the same instant, a miscalculation. The Iron Sentinels moved with practiced precision, boots scattering dust, ropes and hands finding wrists, the giant of the group, Hugo, looming near as if he could hold a man's fear in one long, patient stare. There was no carnival of retribution, no gleeful violence. The club corralled the 3 attackers and pinned them with the awkward intimacy of people who know how to use their bodies to keep others safe. Lily, still trembling, found herself helped up by Dominic, whose hands were gentler than the situation would demand, and she offered the town the most dangerous thing anyone can offer after fear: her face and her words. She insisted on making a statement in front of everyone in daylight because she wanted the city to see that violence could be named, that shame could be put on the record, and that a community could refuse to let cruelty hide in alleys. The sheriff arrived and, for once, the legal machinery and raw communal muscle met and did not collide. The attackers sat tied but unharmed, bewildered by how quickly their small kingdom of terror dissolved into ropes and murmurs. What followed was not a parade of trophies but a slow, granular remaking of how people viewed each other. The Iron Sentinels did not trumpet their intervention. They rode into the cafe lot, stayed like sentinels, and then stood behind Lily as she spoke. No banners, only the quiet solidity of shoulders and boots. Dominic refused to let himself be consumed by the impulse to punish beyond what the law allowed, because Lily's voice had held him in a way he could not deny. Do not lose yourself for me. That restraint was its own kind of power, an insistence that justice be carried out in daylight and not in shadows where vengeance thrives. The townspeople watched a transformation that day, seeing not caricatures of outlaws but a complicated human family who carried both history and honor, who had chosen to stop harm rather than amplify it. The cafe owner wrapped Lily in a blanket like a gentler kind of armor, and the repaired locket, fixed in the days after by a neighbor jeweler who called it an obligation, became less an object and more a marker. A healed hinge, a choice to keep loving despite fear. In the weeks that followed, the town's rhythms shifted in small ways. Shopkeepers who had kept distance began to nod instead of avert their eyes. Parents who once whispered warnings about the club began to tell a different story to their children about what it meant to protect. Dominic did not announce morals or seek applause. He went about the work of being present, of riding with his brothers to community events, of answering the calls that required muscle and answering them with compassion. Lily kept volunteering, the tremor in her hands slowly steadying into purpose, her bravery converting into a voice that encouraged others to report wrongdoing and to believe the law could be a partner to communal care. The men who had chosen cruelty faced the sheriff and the consequences, and the town watched accountability unfold in the open air instead of becoming a secret barter that might rot the neighborhood from within. There is a coppery warmth to remembering that day, like sun through stained glass, where light and shadow both tell the truth. What mattered most was not the theatrics but the simple choices that stitched the community back together. People answering when a scream cried out. A husband, choosing law over blind fury. A club deciding to be guardians rather than avengers. And a woman whose courage insisted that daylight not be the place for fear. If the story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment, and tell us where you're watching from so we can appreciate you. When the cameras go off and the lights slow, the quiet work continues. Lily still loads containers into her truck and Dominic still cleans helmets at dusk, and sometimes they stand on the cafe curb and watch the road as if testing it for peace. The scar on Lily's cheek faded to a pale whisper and the repaired locket sits warm against her collarbone. Not as a talisman against the past, but as a reminder of what people can be when they choose to act with both courage and mercy. In a town that discovered heroes in leather vests and gentle hands, the truest victory was the way ordinary people learned to look up for one another again, and how a single scream could become the first note in a chorus of care.